The IMC Podcast is here to motivate and excite you about reading the Bible while in your corner. With that said, we highly encourage you to draw your own conclusions based on your personal findings in the scriptures as you journey with us on our conversations of the individual biblical characters. The views expressed by the guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors or who they represent. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, and keep going. Like, subscribe, and share.
I think part of us wants to believe that because then we kind of get to take credit for it. Hey, I have this relationship, so God owes me. God's going to do something.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the IMC Podcast, In My Corner podcast, where we explore different biblical characters and stories in order to figure out why their stories played out the way they did. I'm Dee, and with me, my co-host, best friend, Richard, and our special guest and friend, Audrey. She's from California. She's studying at the Theological Seminary here at Andrews University. She loves to travel and bake, make music, and we're so glad to have her on. Richard, we're going to discuss a special character today. Who is it?
Well, today I bring to you a king. Well, not just a regular king. He's one of the kings that tried to walk in the footsteps of his father and try to make sure that everything that he did, in fact, his relationship with God was good. But his friendship choice was quite interesting. And while I don't want to spoil it yet, his son was wayward. But today we're going to see how, should I say the name?
Do it.
Jehoshaphat tried to be different when it came to his father, his son, or maybe among his friends.
Yeah, so thank you so much for inviting me to be here and for letting me pick the character because Jehoshaphat is my favorite guy in the Bible.
Yeah.
He's your guy, he said.
Well, I just find him really fascinating. And I wish I could jump right into the story that really sold me on him, but I think it's important first to understand his background.
Okay.
So as you know, Israel and Judah have good kings and bad kings. And unfortunately, way more bad kings than good kings.
Fortunately.
His father, Asa, is one of the good kings. And Asa makes good decisions, is leading the nation to follow God until the end. And it's actually at the end that he drifts away. And I imagine for Jehoshaphat, that must have been really something. Jehoshaphat was 35 when he became king.
Yeah.
So he would have seen most of his father's reign, and especially the good periods when he was really leading the people. And so I wonder what it was like to watch your father, knowing that there's been so many bad kings, and your father was one of the good ones, and then watch him at the end to make these choices where he's angry at a prophet, right? The prophet comes and warns him, and he throws the prophet in prison, and then he gets this horrible disease and does not turn to God. So I wonder if Jehoshaphat was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be different. You're not my father. Like, I know the person who raised me to follow God. I'm going to be that son.
So at this point, he's probably asking the questions, who are you now?
Yeah, and I think that's something that maybe we can relate to as adults, as we see people who are older than us that we really looked up to, whether they're related or not, make choices, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, you're doing exactly the opposite from what you told me to. So anyway, Jehoshaphat starts and becomes king, and you see him making really good choices, investing in building up their military and their fortifications, but also teaching the people. He's bringing in the Levites. He's having them go out to the different parts and teach the people how to follow God. And that investment in education is noteworthy, and it also shows his leadership, his ability to delegate and to train others to have the vision. And that's something we talk about often at seminaries. You've got to have mission and vision and make sure your whole team is on board. You've got to equip your team. It can't just be you. Yeah. So Jehoshaphat is doing the right thing, and the first story we have in 2 Chronicles is where he is with Ahab. Mm-hmm. And Ahab is the worst king. And they're friends. They're hanging out. And so you read this and you're like, is that Ahab? It's just surprising that a king who was so good and so invested in God would then go and be hanging out with someone who hated God. So I found out about Jehoshaphat when I was a teen, and the reason why is because of this chapter right here in 2 Chronicles 18. And I love the dialogue. This just shows you that the Bible is an amazing book. It's not a stodgy, dusty, irrelevant piece of literature, but it's real.
Something that happened.
Yeah. So I don't know. Should we read this dialogue together?
Yeah, let's do it.
Should we do this? Because there's got some good lines. So can one of you be Ahab?
Who's to be the bad guy? Okay, I'll be Ahab.
Okay, and somebody's Jehoshaphat.
I'll be Jehoshaphat.
Okay, and I'll be Micaiah. So
Okay.
So chapter 18.
Yeah. So chapter 18, we can just sort of read this like a script. So let's read the dialogue, and let's start with. Okay, so verse 5, let me summarize. So the king of Israel, he's bringing together all these prophets, they're false prophets, 400, and asking them, shall we go to war against Ramoth Gilead, or shall I not? And all these prophets say, go, for God will give it into the king's hand.
Joshua said, doesn't the Lord have another prophet here? Let's ask him what God says.
There's still one man by whom we may inquire of the Lord, but I hate him, because he never prophesies good concerning me, but always evil. He is Micaiah, the son of Imlah.
The king shouldn't say things like that.
See, do you hear that right there? I love it. I love how Ahab's like, I hate this guy. Jehoshaphat's like, don't say that.
You're a kid.
All right, so then Ahab goes and brings out Micaiah, and Micaiah at first goes along with the false prophets. Like, oh, go ahead. You're going to be fine. And then Ahab says this in verse 15.
How many times shall I make you swear that you tell me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord?
Micaiah says, I saw all Israel scattered on the hills like sheep without a shepherd. The Lord said, these people have no master. Let each one go home in peace. And Ahab says to Jehoshaphat,
did I not tell you he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil?
Right? I told you. He always says bad stuff about me.
He doesn't like me.
And so Micaiah continues, and it's telling him, like, this is going to end really poorly. And we don't have to read through the rest of it. Just you've already got a sense of that dialogue here, the realness of the relationship. Like, you can't make this stuff up. And then they go into battle, and Ahab, being this awesome friend, is like, hey, Jehoshaphat, how about you dress up like a king, and I'll be in disguise? And Jehoshaphat goes along with it.
Yeah.
And he was just in the room with Micaiah saying, Ahab, you're going to die. Like, you're not going to make it. So it's just astounding that Jehoshaphat does this for his friend.
Yeah.
Should we just say it's the power of friendship?
Like, what makes it, why would Jehoshaphat act that way? What do you guys think in that conversation?
Like, why would he just go along with
Yeah.
everything? I guess it's loyalty to his friend. Because we do that today. If I have a friend and I feel like he's in a situation that, well, it doesn't really go with my values, but it's going to help him in a way, I'm just going to be like, okay, there's one time. I'm just going to go along with his plan and then see what happens. You know? So I'm thinking along the lines of loyalty to his friend. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Audrey?
Well, it's a confusing loyalty, don't you think? Because
loyalty, yeah.
if you're loyal and you care about them, wouldn't you want to also help them
Yeah.
when they're clearly going in a really bad direction? So I don't know. This is what makes Jehoshaphat so interesting, because I think as people, we are likewise complex. And you can't take a person, no matter how good or evil they are, and just put them in a box.
Yeah.
Because we have all these different layers where, I mean, we all understand as seminary students, we really love God. And yet we also struggle in life and we make mistakes. And so I look at Jehoshaphat and I relate to him. This is a guy who is, he really wants to apply his faith. But even in his life, there are areas where it's hard for him to do that. So we have this story, and Ahab dies. Jehoshaphat is spared, and we see in verse 31. So Jehoshaphat is attacked, and in that moment of crisis, he prays. He cries out to God. So we know where his heart is, and God saves him, because maybe that's also what we get. We have the friendship between Jehoshaphat and Ahab and others, and then you have the real friendship, which is God and Jehoshaphat. That's the real friend who is always there for him.
Yeah.
And so I have a question. Because when I talk about the loyalty, I'm thinking about today's friendship, right? Some people would rather do what their friends say than what their parents say, or they rather do what their friends say than what they see in the church. So, in this case, what comes first? Our loyalty to our earthly friends, or our loyalty to our friend Jesus?
To our friend Jesus. Because I think that what comes to mind as you were saying this question is that Jesus is consistent. He doesn't change. While our friends, from season to season, from different stages of life, things can change. So personally for me, I will go towards the direction of Jesus because there's stability there. You know, while my friends may have stability, may give me stability, but it's not a guarantee. As for God, he's always going to give me that guarantee that he is going to be giving me this stability that I need. So
because we struggle with this a lot, and I think Jehoshaphat was struggling a bit with that, finding where his friendship with God and the one between Ahab, which one came first.
Yeah, he is struggling.
Yeah.
Well, we see Ahab die. But what's interesting is that Jehoshaphat ends up being friends with his son. So Ahab is followed by Ahaziah, and then Ahaziah is a really bad king. He doesn't last very long. And then he's followed by his son Joram. And Joram is not quite as bad as Ahab, but he's not a good king either. So for this story, we switch over to 2 Kings. It's 2 Kings 3. So Joram becomes king, and he's not He's not as bad as his parents because he got rid of the sacred stone of Baal, but he's still clinging to the sins of Jeroboam. And he's got a problem, which is that Moab has rebelled. And he needs help. So who does he call? He calls Jehoshaphat. And Jehoshaphat's response is interesting because as we can see, there's some time that has passed, right? Ahab's death would have happened several years ago. But Jehoshaphat answers by saying, I will go with you. I am as you are. My people as your people. My horses as your horses. Jehoshaphat, you've had this situation before.
Yeah.
Where you went into battle with the guy's grandfather and it didn't go well. So don't you think you should think twice before going into battle again? Before just categorically offering your loyalty? Maybe this is the time where you say, hey, let's consult. Let's just check out with God first.
Come on, let's just talk about this.
But he doesn't. He doesn't. Yeah. And so they go out and they're going through the desert. And well, what happens after 7 days? They run out of water. And it's at that point that Jehoshaphat uses his line. And of course, this is in response again to what Joram says. Because Joram says, has the Lord called us 3 kings together only to deliver us into the hands of Moab? And it seems like that's when Jehoshaphat's loyalty kicks in. And he says, is there no prophet of the Lord here through whom we may inquire of the Lord? And they're like, oh, well, there's Elisha. So they go and consult with Elisha. And Elisha's first response is, I don't want anything to do with this.
I mean, think of it. So before going on this trip, you knew to inquire of the Lord, but you didn't. And now that things are getting worse, you're looking for the prophet of the Lord? I would have just responded the same way Elisha did. Yeah. Because, come on.
Yeah. But then Elisha has this funny thing where he says, if it wasn't for the respect I have for Jehoshaphat, I wouldn't pay any attention for you. And we again have that nuance to Jehoshaphat. On the one hand, a king who's so ready to hang out with people who do not follow God and don't prioritize him. And yet it's Jehoshaphat, a good king who even Elisha's like, Jehoshaphat. So Elisha prophesies and has this wonderful message from the Lord saying, you know, I'm going to give you guys water. This is really easy for me to do. And by the way, I'm also going to deliver Moab into your hands. And so that generous nature of God, where once again we see the real friend of God. A God who, even though you have rejected him, you've ignored him, when you turn to him and say, God, I really need you, he is always there. And he's promising assistance. There's not even conditions. He's not even saying, oh, well, I need you to do something first. Apologize. No. God just says, I've got you guys. I'm going to take care of you. And there's this incredible miracle of the water appearing that scares off the Moabites. And so not only do they get water, the Moabites flee, they got all this plunder that the Moabites leave behind. And Moab is not doing well. They're desperate. The king sacrifices his son. And then we have such an unusual ending. You're expecting total victory because God himself says, Moab's coming into your hands. They're going to be overthrown. And yet, it's as if Israel's like, whoa, this is too much. And they withdraw.
Wait, God
just
said,
like
I'm going to fight the battle. You just stay put. And they withdraw? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to understand this.
Yeah, I don't know.
What is going on here?
I don't know. Because it's tricky, because I feel like if I were there, or if I was in their shoes, I would have fallen in line, right? It's easy for me to look at the text and be like, man, why did they do that? But there are instances in our lives that we do the same thing too. So it's we get to relate with these people in a whole new way when we look at this text, and we don't just see them as characters in quotes, but as real people that are, like you said, very nuanced, right? So it's complicated to say the least. Yeah. So yeah. What did you have in mind?
Yeah, it really forces you to think.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it goes back to the lack of faith. Because Jehoshaphat's the one that has the relationship with God.
Yeah.
So when he hears what Elisha says, he would have believed. But if the nation of Israel following Joram, if they don't believe, and it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't matter that there's this prophecy, and it doesn't even matter the success they see, you don't believe.
Yeah.
It leads me to ask the question then, is God, in this case, helping out because of Jehoshaphat's relationship with him? Because it looks like he's the only faithful one over there.
God, that is? Or, yeah. You mean God is the faithful one?
I mean, Jehoshaphat, in the humans that are gathered there, or
Yeah.
that is at what is happening right now.
Got you.
Because not Jerome or his people. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is deep.
So now they're saying that, yeah, so basically your question is, would God had helped him out if
Jehoshaphat was out of the picture.
Yeah, or even at something else, like if he had a relationship with God in the first place, or if he didn't have that, would God still step up? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think part of us wants to believe that, because then we kind of get to take credit for it. Hey, I have this relationship, so God owes me. God's going to do something. But I don't think that's necessarily what's happening here. The role of Jehoshaphat is just that he knows God, and Jehoshaphat is willing to ask. So it feels like God is always there. It's just that nobody was asking him because nobody knew him, and they just were completely ignoring him.
Yeah.
And so that's Jehoshaphat's value.
Got it. Yeah.
So we have these two stories of Jehoshaphat being very complex, being in a jam because of his choice of friendships. And then we have a third story where there is no friend involved. And that takes us back to 2 Chronicles chapter 20. And this is where we have a different enemy that comes through. And I don't know on timing when this is. Is this afterwards? Is this in the middle? But Jehoshaphat certainly acts differently.
Okay.
His enemies, let's see, we have got the Moabites and the Ammonites and some of the Maonites are waging war with Jehoshaphat. And they come tell him, and they're saying, a vast army is coming against you from Edom. And what does Jehoshaphat do? In verse 3, Jehoshaphat inquires of the Lord, and he proclaims a fast. And that's interesting, because he is not in this by himself. We know from the previous chapter that he's been teaching the people. And so he's in a community. So maybe we see friendship in a different way. So the whole nation comes to seek God, every town, And we know from a later verse that we have men, we've got women, we've got children, intergenerational. And Jehoshaphat cries out to God, and it's just really beautiful what he says, because you get a view into his relationship with God. You know, God, you're ruling over the kingdoms of the nations. You're powerful, and this is what you've done before. You have driven out the inhabitants of the land for your people. You promised it to your friend Abraham, and he's just really calling on God to remind God of his promises. And including that this temple, we call out to you, you're going to hear us. And then presenting God with this problem that they have in front of him, and saying, God, we do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. What a beautiful verse. Right?
Yeah.
What, so beautiful. And then the Spirit moves. And I find it so interesting in these stories that we've read, is you have the Spirit of God moving in different people, right? There's Micaiah, there's Elisha, and here you've got a whole different prophet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of God using people in different ways.
Yeah.
So this one is Jehaziel, and he stands up and says, this is what the Lord says, do not be afraid or discouraged. The battle's not yours, but God's, right? These are famous words that we've heard before. And it says exactly, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. And don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Go face him. The Lord will be with you. And then they praise God, and they set out in faith, doing what God asked them to do. And Jehoshaphat does this beautiful thing of bringing out the choir. They haven't even had their victory yet. And already they're praising God, praising him for just who he is.
Oh, man.
His holiness. And saying, give thanks to the Lord, for his love endures forever. Wow. What kind of a king to do that, right? You don't even see David doing that. This is something about Jehoshaphat, to have so much faith and confidence that God is going to take care of them.
Yeah.
And they round a corner, and God has taken care of their enemies so that all they see are dead bodies. Just a vast army lying on the ground. This is the plunder that they get. And then they praise God, and God puts them at peace.
Yeah.
All their enemies are leave them alone. God gives him rest on every side.
Yeah.
So the battle is not over. But yeah, here's Jehoshaphat saying, praise be the name of the Lord.
Yeah.
He's acknowledging the victory even before it happens. He's saying, okay, God, just do your thing. I'm just going to be here and give you your credit. How much more do we do that in our lives today?
Giving God credit. Yeah. Yep. I mean, giving God credit is it's a humbling act. It's a humbling act on our part, because the same way as we just read, Jehoshaphat was very dependent on God, and everybody was involved. You mentioned one aspect of leadership in the beginning, where you need to build a team and everybody needs to be in the same page. And we see this here where everybody was involved, right? And giving God credit is, I feel like it's just that. It's having this dependence on God, that it's not up to me if I'm going to have this victory, it's up to God. And we see that take place, which I thought was very, very nice. So, yeah.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I'd forgotten. One thing I noticed in this story is how Jehoshaphat's a great leader. He's taking care of his country. He is investing in their infrastructure, in their knowledge, and yet in a time of crisis, he is not relying on his own accomplishments.
Yeah.
Not saying, well, we've been preparing, so we're good.
Yeah.
He calls out to God. He is never too accomplished or too successful to call out to God and say, God, I depend on you. I need you.
Yeah.
And that's such a mark of a great leader.
Yeah. And I also see a lot of hope to not only people that are striving to be leaders, or people that are not, they wouldn't consider themselves leaders, but they can still lead. But all this to say that Jehoshaphat, I see a lot of, because you've brought us to an interesting journey with Jehoshaphat.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of mistakes on his part and stuff like that. But as you said, God was always with him, and we just have to be willing to ask him for help. And here we see that when things were looking really rough, we see that Jehoshaphat got it. It's like he's going to, bow down and just ask God for help. And I think as leaders, we need to do just that. We can't just lean on our own strength as leaders, right? Because having this title doesn't just give you powers and anything like that. The only way we can do X, Y, and Z is because God is with us. And so for me, the reason why my point is that as leaders, we are going to make mistakes, but the key takeaway is that the only way we can have this growth, just like Jehoshaphat, we've seen a lot of growth from his part, is having this friendship, this relationship with God, so that we can grow as a leader, but not only as a leader, but whatever God calls us to be.
It's incredible on his part, because not only do we see his praise at the end or during the war, but at the beginning, you mentioned it, he's saying that, God, you've done this before. And we're depending on you to do it again.
Yeah, we get some clues about how Jehoshaphat gets that relationship with God from what he says.
Yeah.
So the fact that he knows the history shows that he's been studying.
Yeah.
And he's been looking at what God did in the past.
Yeah.
And, the fact that he did what he did in chapter 19 also kind of gives us that clue of discipleship, how it's not just you and, your study time. It's also leading other people to God, being a really key, important part of discipleship, and becoming a mature disciple yourself. So maybe that is part of why Jehoshaphat was able to have this tight relationship with God, is because as he was helping others to discover God for themselves, he learns things about God.
And talking about discipleship, in fact, when you go back and read how he built his armies, he didn't build them just in terms of discipline, because he understood that for them to get the part of discipline, he had to train them in the Lord. So a regular army will take people to boot camp, but then he made sure they understood the teachings. He was fasting with them. Like, what kind of army is that? But then he's doing all of these things, trying to make sure that they're not just men drawing swords, but they're men who they draw the swords because they're doing it in the name of the Lord. Or when he built the judicial system. So he's making sure that God's people are taken care of, or the people that he is leading, they're doing things the right way.
Yeah, that's right. He says to his judges, "Now let the fear of the Lord be on you. Judge carefully, for with the Lord our God there is no injustice or partiality or bribery." He says earlier, "Consider carefully what you do, because you are not judging for mere mortals, but for the Lord, who is with you whenever you give a verdict."
Tell that to a judge today.
Yeah, but there's that personal relationship again.
Yeah.
You can't say something like that unless you know God.
Yeah.
And it means something to you to be like, God is watching, and God is like this. God's fair, and be like him.
But I also like that, although he had all of these friends, that their behaviors were completely opposite from his, he didn't allow it to completely influence him. He kept his relationship with God intact.
And that's, if there weren't more to the story, I think it's easy for us to be like, hey, Jehoshaphat was a great guy. And yeah, sure, he was hanging out with Ahab and Joram, but he was all right. it seems in Jehoshaphat's life like there was no negative consequence,
yeah.
except for, he almost got killed in the battle and he was in the desert and almost died from thirst. But otherwise, no, he's a good king until you see what happens to his son. His son is Jehoram, and one of the first things you hear is in 2 Chronicles 21, verse 4. When Jehoram established himself firmly over his father's kingdom, he put all his brothers to the sword.
Okay, shocker.
Brothers?
For what?
Wow. We've had some other people who were evil in the Bible, but even they didn't kill all their siblings. This is a bad guy. How does Jehoshaphat, such a good king, end up having such an evil son? And that's when you have to wonder, well, what was the impact of those relationships? And, well, you know that Jehoram was married to Ahab's daughter.
Oh, okay. Not surprising anymore. Okay, not surprising anymore. I have no words.
Nah.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, Ahab's daughter. Yeah.
That's tough.
So
how how would you reconcile that? How would you reconcile that from seeing Jehoshaphat and then seeing his son act out the way he is? So, like, is there an explanation to that? Because I know Ahab's daughter, he's Ahab's daughter, but is there more to it than just relationships, or is there something bigger happening, like in a macro level?
Well, there's some things we're just not going to know, right? But if you're spending a lot of time with Ahab, and there's an influence from our friends, and maybe Jehoshaphat was able to resist that and still stay true to God, but that influence was still there, impacting his family. And certainly that's how his son knows the daughter, and to find her attractive means there had to have been some familiarity.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
We're going to have to do another episode on this one. You need to come back and do an episode on his son.
Yeah.
I want to understand it.
Yeah.
Because how does it go from here to here?
Yeah. And again, it goes back to what you said in the beginning. It's just like there are things that we're never going to know. We have clues or signs, but we don't have the answer, like explicit answer. And again, like you said, like things are just so complicated. Like as humans, you would think that everything will fall into place, like, oh, like father, like son, but that's not always the case. So that's just how life is, I guess.
And I think reading all of these stories,
Yeah.
I don't think Jehoshaphat just left his son like, I'm not going to teach you anything, or I'm not going to show you the things that you're supposed to. Because he's doing that with outsiders, the entire nation. So I don't think he would easily miss teaching his son the right things to do in life. When he knows at some point he's also become king.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there definitely was intentionality with the nation, so we can assume with his own family there should have been as well.
Yeah.
But it seems like that Jehoshaphat having an area of life that wasn't fully under God's control, his friendships, it wasn't a minor area. And that's why we really have to surrender everything to God. Because we'll think, oh, it's not a big deal. And it is.
All right. This is when I talk to you. Right. I know you love your friend. I know you like your friend too much to the extent that well, you can say, I'm going to die for my friend. But the question is, what kind of influence is your friend having on the people around you? You might be doing fine with your friend. In fact, you might end up in a debate with them or in an argument with them, and then you come back to them, you reconcile, sort things out. But the question is, after you're gone, or after you're not around that friend no more, what impact does it leave on the people you leave behind? You don't have to answer. Think through it. D.
I'm going to leave it to you. Is there a last takeaway you want to leave for the audience?
Just read it.
Just read it.
Read it for yourself. I hope that this has whetted your appetite to read for yourself what the Bible says.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because, I mean, the purpose of this show, of this podcast, is just to, sparkle a little bit of curiosity so that you can go back to the word and read for yourself. That's the whole thing. Don't take everything that we're saying. Just read it for yourself. So I hope that was a blessing. It's D. We have Richard.
Yeah, that's my name always.
And we have our special guest, Audrey. Thank you so much for having us. And yes.
You're blessed.
We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace. And she's coming back.